Imagine a world where the wealth of nations seems unshakable, where empires boast towering banks, overflowing treasuries, and a confidence that feels eternal. But beneath the polished marble floors and gold-plated seals, something darker is stirring. A silent force, capable of collapsing governments, rewriting history, and plunging millions into chaos. Money, once humanity's greatest invention, has also been its most powerful destroyer. And when nations went bankrupt, the world changed forever. Our story begins centuries ago, when the very concept of banking was still a dangerous experiment. In 1609, the city of Amsterdam, buzzing with merchants and global trade, witnessed the birth of something revolutionary. The first true public bank, the Bank of Amsterdam. It wasn't just a place to store money. It was an institution designed to stabilize a chaotic world of currencies, coins, and deceit. The bank promised honesty in an age of manipulation. And for a while, it worked. Money became predictable. Trade exploded. Economies flourished. But stability has always been a fragile illusion. As empires grew richer, their appetites grew deeper. Kings, queens, generals, and admirals, everyone wanted more. More land, more soldiers, more power. And every desire came with a cost. Soon, nations discovered something irresistible. Borrowing. Why wait to collect taxes when you could summon mountains of money with a single stroke of a quill? The promise was simple. You borrow today, you conquer tomorrow, and you pay it back someday. But someday never comes as easily as rulers imagined. The first great warning came from Spain, then the richest empire on earth. Gold and silver from the New World flooded its treasury, blinding its rulers with the illusion of infinite wealth. Galleons arrived heavy with treasure. But Spain's expenses grew heavier still. Endless wars, rising armies, ambitious kings, and not enough discipline. Spain became addicted to borrowing, and in 1557, the impossible happened. The Empire of Gold went bankrupt. The shock was immense. How could the richest nation in the world run out of money? Merchants panicked. Soldiers went unpaid. Interest rates soared like wildfire. And Spain, instead of learning its lesson, declared bankruptcy again and again and again 4 times in less than a century. Each collapse weakened the empire, carving cracks into the foundations of global power. But Spain wasn't alone. Across Europe, kings watched and then repeated the same mistakes. In 1700s France, a financial magician named John Law promised miracles. He convinced the French monarchy that paper money, backed by colonial land, could save the country. At first, he looked like a genius. French citizens grew rich overnight, investing in Mississippi Company shares that seemed destined only to rise. Champagne flowed. Paris glowed. Fortunes multiplied like magic. Then, the magic vanished. A single spark of doubt triggered panic. People rushed to convert their paper into gold. But the gold wasn't there. The bubble burst with catastrophic force. Savings evaporated. Riots exploded. The French economy collapsed, and the monarchy's credibility shattered. This collapse became one of the hidden triggers that pushed France toward revolution. Across the Atlantic, the young United States faced its own trial. After the Revolutionary War, the nation was drowning in debt. States were broke. Soldiers were unpaid. The currency was worthless. The world questioned whether the new country would even survive. But through tight discipline and the creation of the first Bank of the United States, the nation managed to climb back from the edge. Yet even the United States would eventually feel the sting of collapse. Fast forward to 1929. A warm October day. Wall Street, the beating heart of American finance, was buzzing with confidence. Stocks were rising. Fortunes were exploding. And everyone believed the good times would last forever. But beneath the excitement, speculation had twisted into madness. People weren't investing. They were gambling with borrowed money. Then came the fall. The stock market crashed with a thunder that echoed across continents. Banks failed. Businesses died overnight. Unemployment soared to unimaginable levels. The Great Depression wasn't just an economic disaster. it was a psychological one. Fear settled like a fog across the world. Countries turned inward, democracies wavered, extremists rose, and in the ashes of collapse, the seeds of World War II were planted. History seemed to warn us again and again, but humanity wasn't listening. In the late 20th century, Latin America became the epicenter of a new wave of financial disasters. Argentina's economy, once one of the world's richest, spiraled into crisis after crisis. Corruption, overspending, and crippling debt turned the nation into a place where inflation ran wild. Prices doubled in weeks. Families burned worthless banknotes to stay warm. Pensioners lost their life savings. It wasn't just an economic failure. It was human heartbreak on a national scale. And then came 2001. Argentina defaulted in the largest sovereign bankruptcy the world had ever seen. Millions sank into poverty. Banks froze withdrawals. People screamed in the streets. The financial system had collapsed under its own weight. But Argentina wasn't alone. Russia, in 1998, stunned the world when it defaulted. The country's currency collapsed. Banks shut their doors. People lost everything. The shockwaves spread across Asia and Europe, shaking financial markets like an earthquake. Greece followed in 2010. Years of hidden debt, overspending, and political denial erupted into one of the worst crises in modern history. Banks shut down. Withdrawals were limited. Protests filled the streets. An entire nation teetered between survival and collapse, while the world watched, terrified. And yet, even these stories aren't the end, because behind every bankruptcy lies the same ancient pattern, a cycle woven into the fabric of human nature. Greed, ambition, denial, fear. Nations rise with confidence and fall through miscalculation. Leaders believe crises happen to others, never to themselves. Economies grow bloated on borrowed time. Wealth becomes an illusion, and the moment people lose trust, the system crumbles like sand slipping through open fingers. But there is something deeper, something almost haunting, about the history of financial collapse. It reveals a truth we often try to ignore. Money is not real, not in the way we imagine. It is belief. It is trust. It is a collective dream. And the moment people stop believing, nations fall. Today, as countries accumulate record-breaking debts, as banks stretch their limits, as markets surge on fragile optimism, the ghosts of past crises whisper warnings. They remind us of Spain's pride, France's delusions, America's panic, Argentina's heartbreak, and Greece's desperation. They remind us that no nation, no matter how powerful, is immune to collapse. And in this long, painful history, one question remains unanswered. If nations have fallen again and again, despite wealth, power, and ambition, what protects the nations of today? Are we wiser, or are we repeating the same ancient mistakes, just wrapped in a modern disguise? The answer may lie in our understanding of that first bank, created centuries ago to bring order to financial chaos. It showed the world that stability isn't natural. It must be built, protected, and defended. And when vigilance fades, collapse follows. The story of nations going bankrupt is not a relic of the past. It is a mirror reflecting our present, a warning etched into history, a reminder that the wealth of nations is fragile, and the next great financial shock may already be forming, silently, patiently, just beyond the horizon. Thanks for watching.